Hello and welcome to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. If you're here in San Diego, I'm doing the show and then heading over to St. Therese of Carmel Parish, where Monica Dumit, who was on yesterday, is going to give a talk. She gave apparently just a killer talk last night to the Legatus folks here in San Diego, and tonight a public talk over at Our Lady of St. Therese of Carmel Parish. And maybe we'll see you there. If you're anywhere around here in San Diego, come on over. We'll see you there. There's all kinds of free food and drink and just a great talk from the Director of Public Policy for the Archdiocese of Sydney, Australia, Monica Dumit. Boy, do we have 2 good hours for you here today. 2 really good hours. Second hour, Father Sam Keys, who's always fun to have on. And it'll be Ask a Priest. We'll end the work week, the Monday through Friday work week here with Ask a Priest. You can ask him whatever you'd like, and you don't have to be Catholic to call. This hour, she's back. We've missed her so much. Rose Sweet is back, and this weekend, Father's Day weekend. So we're going to talk to Rose about fatherhood, and if you've got questions for Rose, 888-318-7884. Rose Sweet, of course, life coach, author, Catholic speaker, and all-around Catholic superstar. Rose Sweet, thank you for being here.
I'm a good cook, too.
And a good cook. Oh, I'm sorry. I left something off.
I missed you guys
and
so much.
And a snappy dresser.
Thank you, thank you. No, I missed you very much. It's really good to be back.
Yeah, people have noticed, They've been like, what did you do to Rose? Why
I know, and I want to
Rose?
thank everybody out there for prayers and everything while I was taking care of business these last few weeks.
We're awful glad to have you back. We were just talking about your dad. He sounds like quite a man.
He was wonderful.
Tell us a little bit about him.
Well, we had 9 kids, and he married my mom when he was 40. So I came along. I'm the first one at 41, and he had 8 more after that.
Good Lord.
And he was never afraid. He told all of his kids, every baby brings its own bread. Just trust God.
Isn't that a beautiful example for a father to set?
He was wonderful. So he grew up as a Methodist in Northern California. He was born in 1910, and he gave his heart to Jesus in a tent revival by a traveling evangelist. Yes. It was an altar call, and he remembers being 11 years old and going down and giving his heart to Jesus. And then fast forward, he meets my mom, and she's Roman Catholic and practicing and devout. And she goes, I can't even date you. I can't marry you because you're not Catholic. And he's going, oh, that's ridiculous. And so he set about almost 4-year journey of diving into every world religion to prove my mother wrong.
Really?
And as we all know what happens with an open mind.
He proved her right.
He was sold out to the Catholic Church, and he converted. And he raised all of us as Catholic kids, and they sacrificed. He didn't spend any money on himself ever except a new car every few years to put us all through Catholic school and paid for our Catholic tuition. That was the biggest gift he gave all his kids, was developing, our faith. But he was also sturdy and practiced in his faith, and he would always refer to God the Father and how God fathered his children. And we'd go, yeah, right?
Yeah.
But he would say, I will never withhold my love, but I might withhold my favor.
Oh, wow.
To teach you a lesson.
Wow, he had a real insight, didn't he?
Well, and he would refer to Scripture. Look how God treats his people. He never abandoned us, but he'd pull back on the blessings when we were going down the wrong path.
I heard that he fired you.
Yeah, that's a good example. So I went to him in my early 20s, and I said, Dad, can I borrow $1,000? My girlfriend and I want to move to a nice little apartment. He goes, well, no, honey, I don't want to lend it to you. He goes, but you can work for me. So I was like, oh. So he made me type his commercial real estate appraisal reports for a month to earn the money. And when I saw how much money my dad made, I said, Dad, could I be a commercial real estate appraiser?
So he had 9 kids, though.
Well, and so he taught me the business, and it was really a man's business way back then. And for 30 years, Dad and I worked side by side in good times and bad times. And I became I was always his daughter, but I became his friend and his business partner, his partner in crime.
Wow.
And it was a really rich, beautiful time of life. Yeah, and he passed 20 years ago.
I noticed you just skipped over the part about when he fired you. You told the whole story, and that did not include the
Okay,
firing.
yeah, okay. So, I started to think I was pretty smart, and I was, but I thought I was smarter than him. And this is how we should do business, Dad. And he goes, well, if you don't like it, you can leave. And as a matter of fact, get your purse and you're fired. And, he'd had it up to here with something. And I went home and I cried. And I knew he didn't really mean it.
Mm-hmm.
He meant it, but he didn't really mean it. But I knew what to do. So the next morning I came back all sheepish and, Dad, I'm sorry. And he goes, oh, honey, I'm sorry too. And I crawled up in his lap. And
Aw.
about 10 minutes later, it was business as usual. And that happened a few other times. So.
You were fired multiple times by
Yeah,
your own
yeah,
father.
yeah.
Well, I think I'm so glad to get that reflection on your father. It's people. I mean, we all have just wildly different experiences of fatherhood from our father, all the way from the truly horrific and tragic to the really beautiful like that. A father who's a man of faith, who shares the faith with his children, leads the family in faith, and then fires you a couple times when you get older.
Because that's
So-
what God would have done. And he made that very clear to us. This is how God fathers his children. He wants you safe. He wants you virtuous. And he's not going to let you get too far off the path.
Yeah, and your dad didn't.
No, he was wonderful.
If you want to talk about the fatherhood, maybe particularly from the Christian perspective, you're welcome to call and talk with Rose as we prepare for Father's Day weekend, 888-318-7884. I know in your work, life coaching work and just the work that you do speaking and helping people, you actually come up against a lot of dads who feel quite alienated and separated from their children these days.
Yes, as many of my male clients are having trouble with their children, and it's either the child has rebelled, maybe the mother has undercut the father's authority for 20 years, maybe it's been a divorce situation, but their hearts are aching and they don't know how to reach their children, so they either pull back and do nothing, or they pursue them so relentlessly the kids are running away from them.
Right.
And so I try to help them find that middle ground and have hope that things will turn out.
Well, let's do this then. Let's take some time with your tips for helping fathers who are alienated from children, and then we'll let dads talk with you. 888-318-7884.
The first thing, and it's not the last thing, is pray and fast. Pray and fast. Offer something up. These are hard things that are attaching to our children and fathers and mothers, but today we're talking about dads. Pray and fast. Number 2, be curious about your kids. This is something I don't think we naturally stop and think about. Before you teach them, get to know them. Ask them, how was your day? Who's your best friend? Do you like baseball? What do you hate about dancing? What did you like that ice cream we had for dessert? Just ask questions and get to know that little person, or if they're an adult child, maybe you never did it, it's not too late. Be curious about your kids and get to know them before you try to teach them. And number 3, make time for talk, not just activity. I know we pile the kids in the car,
yeah.
We go to a game, we go have a beer, we do all these things with our kids, and we never really open up and share our heart or ask about theirs. And that's where those teaching moments come in, the quiet moments in the car or on road trips, one-on-one time. So don't just share activity. Talk to your kids. My dad did that all the time, and that's how he imparted the faith and his love. He imparted first his love for God, deep love for God. Okay, number 4, invite your kids into your world. Don't just sit down with your little daughters, like some say, and have a tea party with them or whatever, or go to the kids' baseball game. That's great too, but also draw them out of the world of children and into the adult world appropriately every once in a while. My dad would take us to his office and let us sit and color, or we would file papers, or we would vacuum. And we got to be around adults and in my dad's world, and we were in his environment. And working with my dad for 30 years, it's to me an analogy of you and I are in the Lord's vineyard. We're working in our Father's business right now.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
Isn't it?
That's right. We're working
Right.
in the Father's
We're
business.
working
yeah.
under him, and we're working with him and alongside him. So take your kids, not just take your kids to work, but into your world. And number 5, hold a tender heart and a hard line.
This is a hard one. This is a hard one. It's one or the other. I mean, it's just hard to have a sense of, I don't know, when you have a tender heart, the line tends to get a little fuzzy. And when the line is firm, it's hard to be tender. You tend to be like, I gotta, you get that.
Right, to exert your authority.
Yeah.
When you realize you're slipping, your authority is slipping away, you want to get it back, so you go to that harsh place. And that doesn't do any good either.
Yeah. All right.
So, that's something that I think all men, whether you've had children yet or you're, all men are called to share in God's fatherhood in some way in life. To be mentors, to be fathers, to be protectors. So pray for that balance, to have a tender heart, but to be able to hold the hard line, like my dad did.
Yeah. All right, so Rose Sweet's our guest. The number is 888-318-7884. There's a few lines open. We're talking about fatherhood as we head into the Father's Day weekend. I know you've heard a lot about fatherhood today and this week on the various programs on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network and on your local stations. Rose does life coaching, and she's given us those tips for helping fathers today who
And there is one more.
I know.
Okay.
Oh my gosh,
you
Rose!
forgot it.
You think that I forgot about you? You know what? I'm trying to have a tender heart, Rose, but I got to hold a firm line here. You have to let me finish the phone number before you interrupt me. 888-318-7884. All right, give us the last point.
No, I'm not going to give it to you now.
Oh, what? Do I have to take a break or something?
No, you have to fire me. Okay. No, here's the last one. And this is even harder than the other one. Be appropriately detached.
Okay, help me with that. What does that mean?
This is in the Catechism. Okay, Catechism of the Catholic Church says about parenting to have a disinterested service to your children. Disinterested service.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean don't care about them, but get your ego out of it.
Right.
If your kids don't like you and are mad at you and are withholding their affection, don't go soft.
Yeah.
Don't go soft. Don't hold their affection as an idol. That's why we can't do that. We can't stay detached as parents because our kids' affection is too much. We hold it in too high esteem.
Yeah. Right. You can't fully be of service to them if you're trying to get your needs met with their affection.
That's right. And that's good and normal to want that, but you have to love God first and be okay without your kids' love and affection.
Lines are filling up. There's a couple lines open. 888-318-7884. We're talking about fatherhood in this it's a difficult time for fatherhood. Maybe I'll ask you a little bit about that when we come back from the break. But I'll let people talk to you first before I do that. But this whole idea of it has gotten tough out there on fathers. And in part because I guess we don't like manhood anymore.
And we women hold a very guilty role in that, and we'll talk about that.
I'm so glad it's your fault. I am so glad.
I'll take it.
888-318-7884.
Catch Catholic Answers live anytime at Catholic.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
The destination for great Catholic audio programming is EWTN Podcast Central, featuring the best of EWTN radio, as well as faith-filled podcasts from our friends and affiliates across the nation, all in one place, all free. If it's central to the faith, you can find it on EWTN Podcast Central. It's like podcast heaven. Visit EWTN.com/radio/podcasts today.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. Talking about fatherhood as we head into Father's Day. Rose Sweet is here. It's always nice when Rose is here. It was very nice to hear about your father. That's a beautiful testimony that you gave to your own father.
Thank you, Cy.
And I think dads want to be good dads, and more there's a struggle of how to be a good dad in the world today. So we got a bunch of folks on the lines who want to
Okay,
talk
can
to
I
you.
interrupt again one more time, pretty please?
Oh, good Lord.
Here's a
Rose.
qualifying thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not a man. I'm not a dad. I don't want to be a dad.
Yeah.
But it's the role of women and wives to support their husbands in their fatherhood, not
Yeah.
compete and not undermine. And I come here to, as a call to women too, to support your men, support the husbands, help them. And in my work, I'm able to do that. So thank you for having me on.
Well, we're happy to have you for this.
Okay.
888-318-7884, the number. Let's start in Michigan. Joe's in Michigan, listening to EWTN on Channel 130, Sirius XM satellite radio. Joe, thank you very much for the call. Go ahead with your question for Rose Sweet. Hi, Joe.
Thank you. Hi. I have 9 children. The first 2 children were from an annulled marriage. I had custody of them. They ended up going, was doing, which was part of the annulment because she was into drugs and stuff like that. So they ended up having children out of wedlock, and they were kind of abusive to the other siblings as they were growing up. So it was causing trouble with my marriage, and we kept those 2 children away from the homeschool kids that the 7 others that me and my wife have. And it's been bothering me for a long time, and I've been trying to get a hold of them, trying to be a part, but they're still in that mindset of being away from the church and doing what they want and having children out of wedlock, and I'm in a conundrum with that.
Yeah. Rose?
Yeah, okay. This is so common, Joe. That's a sad situation to be in, but you're not alone in that, sadly. First of all, remember this. They have a heavenly Father who knows them intimately and loves them passionately and will never abandon them and always has his hand over them in some way, shape, or form until the moment they die. He's got those kids. Okay. That should give you some relief there. Second of all, your kids have their own free will. They have conditioning, like you said. They have attitudes that you can't necessarily control or overcome now. But if you continually pray for your kids, and like I said in my tips, open the door. I don't know if you see them, but once a year on their birthday, send them a card. It doesn't have to be a big, long letter. Please come back to church. We love you. Nothing. Just, how are you doing? Keeping you in my prayers. Love you very much. That's all. Just let them know you're there. Why? Because that's what God did with his people. As we look in Scripture, is even when they were wandering around, he was sending prophets and he was letting them know, I'm still here, but he gave them the freedom and the time to come back to him. And he wasn't running around the universe chasing people down. That's the thing that we get afraid of, and we either pursue or we distance. And so I want you to hold fast and firm in your knowledge that God, their Heavenly Father, loves them 10 million more times than you ever could. And just go to the Lord and ask him, what can I do other than pray? And if all you can do is pray and send those annual cards for 10 more years, that could be really good. That could be the thing that flowers 20 years from now. Does that make sense?
Well, I can't go back to Joe. He dropped that something was up with that line. So
okay.
We'll hope that makes sense.
Joe, yes, I hope, and we're praying for you too.
Thank you, Joe. The number is 888-318-7884. Going to Omaha, Nebraska, listening on Spirit Catholic Radio. Tom in Omaha, you are next. Tom, go ahead with your question for Rose.
Thank you for taking my call. Here's my question. What do you do about men who cannot bond? They don't bond well with their spouses, and they certainly don't bond with their kids, let alone their sons. And what do you do about that? And you sometimes don't. And bonding with the sons, or failure to bond with the sons, is the chief cause of homosexuality. Well, what do you do with these men, or how do you deal with that inability to bond? What do you suggest?
Tom, I'm so glad that you brought this up, because in a lot of circles today, people don't really believe there are people who cannot bond. But this has been a long-known, sad brokenness in some people. It's a deep psychological wound, and they may go to their death being unable to form a really safe and trusting connection with another human person. I have this in my own family, so I hear you on that. There is nothing you can do to bring them around to the condition that you may want them to be. So I'm going to say there's nothing you can do in that regard, but you can, as I said, always pray, always trust God, and find other, for yourself or whoever you're talking about, find other men as mentors and substitute fathers, and be thankful for that. We're not ever going to be able to get every single thing we want out of our dads. No dad can bear that weight. And there are cases where an inability to bond, it's a trauma. But there's nothing you can do to change that sometimes. Therapy, meds, long, intense work, yes, there could be hope, but most therapists today and psychiatrists today say that in many cases it's not going to happen. So you take care of you, trust God, stay healthy.
Tom, thanks very, very much for the call. We're talking about fatherhood with Rose Sweet, particularly the challenges of fatherhood today. Many of them, I don't know that there's new challenges, but there's intensity in certain areas of the challenges fathers
That's a good
face,
way of putting it, yeah.
Yeah. Let's go to another Tom in Lubbock, Texas. Tom, thank you very much for waiting. Go ahead with your question for Rose.
Yes.
Hi, Tom.
So, hello. Appreciate you guys very much. You're very helpful to a lot of people. I was married 20 years and had 2 kids. They're 24 and 22 now, and it is a divorce situation and annulled. So that was, again, 6 years ago, the divorce and annulment. Well, the annulment took about a year after that. But, yeah, I'm sad. It's again, Father's Day weekend. My dad, my folks, they were both cradle Catholic, great examples. Going to Mass was something we did, certainly every Sunday, and then the extra days, the holy days of obligation. That's just how I grew up, and married someone who was not Catholic. She did convert. She didn't like being Catholic. Yeah, and I won't get into all that. But my kids, yeah, they basically ghosted me. Sometimes they respond to a text. They won't answer a phone call, and I don't even have their address. I mean, they wouldn't give it to me. So, yeah, it hurts. The heartache is deep, and I don't know what to do. I just know that this is going on 6 years, and it doesn't seem like it's going to change. I do keep sending a text. Now, sometimes they do respond. Sometimes they don't. I'll send a text for their birthday, Christmas, Easter. And then the other thing I would just ask, what would you suggest? And then the other thing that is hard is my ex, who I'm married. She's had a lot of tragedy in her life, and it did cause difficulty in the marriage. And she definitely convinced them that they could. What she says is they can love their dad, but they have to love him from far away.
Okay. All right, Rose.
This, sadly, as I told the other caller, this is very painful for you, but it is not uncommon at all. Many of my clients who are dads whose children have ghosted them. Here's some good news. I'm just going to give you some encouraging news. First of all, they're still babies. What do they know about life? Are they married? When they get married and have their own kids, they're going to go through a lot of changes. And the hard wiring that God puts in every child to know the Father and to love the Father and to be connected with their Father will rise again. And what I would tell all my clients like this, just be patient. do what I tell you, pray and fast and send those cards. Don't overly pursue because they'll just run away. Just let them know you're there, and you wait, even if it takes 10 or 15 or 20 years, because there's something about the growth process, and when they become parents themselves, there's a lot of change. And we hear a lot of stories where kids, they were 16 and 18 when that divorce happened. They weren't fully formed, mentally and emotionally. So there's hope. You have to stay strong like a lighthouse, firm in your faith, optimistic for the future, and be patient.
Tom, thank you very, very much. We're talking with Rose Sweet as we head into the Father's Day weekend here in the United States. If you got a question about fatherhood or the modern struggles of fatherhood, give us a call. Right back after this. Want to get right to the core of Christ's saving message? Want a roadmap for living the life Christ calls you to? It's time to look again at the Beatitudes. In his new book, Heart of the Gospel, How the Beatitudes Show Us God's Plan for Happiness, Father Sebastian Walsh demonstrates compellingly how these 8 declarations make up the foundation, the essence, and the final goal of Jesus' teaching. Heart of the Gospel illuminates the scriptural passages from which we get the Beatitudes, explains the significance of their wording, their order, and their timing in Jesus' ministry. And it draws out edifying parallels and connections with salvation history and the lives of the saints. Most importantly, Father Walsh offers wise counsel from his own work as a priest and teacher to help you live the Beatitudes in your own life. Order your copy of Heart of the Gospel today at shop.catholic.com or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Want to know more about the origins of the Catholic Church? Joe Heschmeyer explores the beginnings of Christianity. In the early church was the Catholic Church. Joe digs deep into the words and actions of those who lived right after the apostles to refute anti-Catholic claims of how the faith was lived back then. Order your copy of The Early Church Was the Catholic Church today at shop.catholic.com or get it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
If you're not a Bible scholar, the full message of how the Sunday Mass readings fit together can be tough to comprehend. Apologist Carlo Broussard is here to help. Join Carlo every Friday for the Sunday Catholic Word podcast. In each episode, he unpacks the scripture readings for that Sunday and brings them all together so you can better understand and defend the faith. Visit SundayCatholicWord.com to subscribe. That's SundayCatholicWord.com.
Matt Swaim here. Monday on the Sunrise Morning Show, we'll take a look at this week in Catholic history with Kevin Schmiesing and get you all the latest news, weather, sports, and more. Now back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back, Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Rose Sweet is back. We haven't had Rose with us for a while. People started protesting and getting mad, so we were like, we have to relent and have her back. And here
Maybe
she is.
someday you'll pay me.
That's so funny, Rose.
What?
That's a great joke. You're so funny.
And my dad told funny jokes too, but you told it wasn't funny, but you told something good to me personally at the break about your kids and you're worried about them.
Oh my gosh, that's why I say it at the break, is because I don't want to No, I'll share it. I was just telling you about how with my kids in their 20s, sometimes I would start thinking, oh my goodness, what is this kid doing? And when are they going to get it together? And then I would think, well, what was I doing at their age? And I think, they're fine. They're fine. No problem. They're going to be all right.
It doesn't mean...
Because you forget what it's like to be 24
right.
or 25 or 26.
Yeah, and you might still have the problem, but it takes it down on a level.
Yeah,
right,
you think,
right.
okay, yeah, these things work. They work their way out. And I have, it's funny because I have a daughter now who's 29. And the difference between her at 23 and 29 is like 20 years of growth. I don't know how it happened, but that's what happens in your 20s.
That's what I was just saying about this. The previous caller's kids, they're in their early 20s. They're still figuring things out. Yeah. When they get a little settled down, they're going to turn and look at dad again.
888-318-7884 is the number. We'll come right back here to California. Michael's in Los Angeles watching on YouTube. Michael, thanks for the call. Go ahead with your question for Rose.
Thank you so much. I'm curious what type of advice or books do you have for fathers who have children in, let's say, between ages 7 and 15, and the school is indoctrinating them to the LGBTQ lifestyle? What type of books or advice do you have for a father? Maybe
this may not be I'm
I'm
going to give advice even before Rose does.
I know
this,
what
this
it
may
is.
not
Say
be an
it.
option for
Say
you.
it. Get
them
'em
out of
out.
those schools.
That's what I was
And
gonna
I will
get-
tell you
yeah.
that from personal experience. I'm sorry, some of the stuff that's being said and done in California public schools is insane, and it's hurtful to children and confusing to them, and some of the educators, there's millions of wonderful educators, but some of these educators actually feel that their job is to fix all these crazy Christian ideas and stuff that the kids are getting at home, and those helpful people, and I put helpful in quotes, are really damaging families. Now, it may not be possible. Not all families can get the kids out of those schools. But if you can, get them out. Don't wait. It's because if you think it's bad, it's worse than what you think. The kids are not telling you everything.
It is way worse, and I'm glad you said that. Okay, here's what I would add to that. Rather than trying to get a book, and I don't know of any books written for Christian children or parents of children, this whole alphabet soup thing, I can't even say it, is so new still. We haven't caught up to it, I don't think, like we will in the near future. But you know when they're trying to train people about counterfeit bills?
Oh, yes, I know.
Okay, so they don't train them with counterfeits. They sit them in a room and have them touch and feel and smell and be surrounded by the real thing all day long. So when they leave that room, they can spot a counterfeit right away. So I would say instead of focusing on what the kids are being taught and saying why that's wrong or blah, 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 focus on virtue, focus on the theology of their body, focus on what the Catholic Church teaches about the dignity of the person. There's a lot of good books out there written by Rua Woods is one resource that has a lot of the theology of the body content written for, grade school kids.
Will you say it again?
Rua, R-U-A-H, Rua Woods.
Okay. Rua Woods. All right.
I wish I don't have more, but Google. They have theology of the body resources that are fabulous. You can get. So again, I would say that, Michael, pray and fast. Be curious about what your kids are learning. Make time to talk about things, and just get that discussion going. You have an uphill battle because even though they love you and adore you and trust you, they go to school and they see all these shiny, interesting, fascinating, entertaining things. And they're children and their brains aren't formed and they're just swept away. So it's a battle. So back to what you said, if you can get them out, get them out.
Michael, I want to come back to you and get your response.
Some of us are kind of poor, so we can just take our kids out. Is there like a Catholic Answers video collection for homeschooling? Maybe a video for children for homeschooling or things like that.
Well,
be a cheaper version and put them in private school.
Oh, you're talking about for homeschooling purposes, because Catholic Answers doesn't.
Yeah, like videos of Catholic videos or something like that. Maybe
no, but that's
the way to do it.
I think that's
cheaper than private schooling because everything's expensive.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so I'm sorry, you were focusing just on the LGBTQ issues, but no, if you just want a good, rounded, solid Catholic education, there are a lot of resources out there. Dr. Ray Guarendi, who's on this program a lot more than me, and that always makes me mad. But anyway,
more than we'd like to.
Yeah. Anyway,
Dr.
Dr.
That
Ray
came out wrong. I apologize, Dr. Ray.
Dr. Ray, DRRAY.com. He has lots of great parenting and homeschooling resources with a really solid Catholic underpinning. Michael, I think you would like his stuff.
Yeah, and there are, online there's tons of resources. Ignatius Press has a brand new, they did it with the Augustine Institute, brand new set of materials for families. You can go to, I just looked at, right now, I'm looking at the Rua Woods Institute that you talked about, but there is no shortage of materials because I think many of the Catholic educational apostolates and institutions know what parents are dealing with, they have developed these things. And there are free or very low-cost materials all over the place for Catholic education.
I think the theology of the body is the antidote to understanding that is the antidote to this whole sexual disordered perversion thing that we're seeing. It really is based in an understanding of how God created us and how good we are as male and female. And there are wonderful materials. Kids need to know that.
Michael, thanks very, very much. You can also get Trent Horn's book, Made This Way. As a matter of fact, hang on. I'll tell you what, since all we gave you was advice, and we can give you an actual book. We'll put it in your hands. If you hang on the line, we'll send you Made This Way, which is a wonderful, this is a good book to read if you want to discuss these things with your kids. And anybody else wants it, it's available at shop.catholic.com. Thank you, Michael. Rose Sweet is our guest. We're talking about fatherhood. Patricia, I'm coming to you in Pennsylvania, but this is what I'm talking about the intensity, that there was a time when parents didn't send kids off to school and the guidance counselor was trying to convince your daughter that she's gay.
Right.
But I'm just using that as one example because there's 1,000 different things. But that's what parents are dealing with these days. The guidance counselor thinks you're, that they're the liberator of your children from you.
And it did start in the 60s. I know when I was still in school, the counselor would try to put the girls on the pill. That was a big thing.
Yeah,
that was
these helpful people is what
right.
I call them.
Now here it is. Here, we'll take you to the doctor and you can have major sex surgery. Ugh.
Yeah, the transgenderism. The other thing so there's this active confusing and misdirecting and miseducating of children going on. I know it's intense here in California. I know it in part because teachers will, I get these emails where the teachers they'll go, look at this. This is what was in our training this week in the LA Unified School District. And you look at it and you go, I wouldn't share that with my children. There's no way that I would share that with my children. But this is the training that the teachers are getting.
And that's the counterfeit. Remember, that's the counterfeit. Don't focus on the counterfeit. That's what they want you to do because you'll never win that argument.
No, right.
So not ignore it, but move over and help your children understand the truth, the real $100 bill of who they are as male and female, made in God's image.
Yep. And if your Catholic diocese is not helping with homeschooling, I think they're making a terrible mistake. And I don't mind saying it. Bishops who are saying, "Oh, I don't want to get involved in that homeschooling thing. I'm just about the Catholic schools." No, Catholic schools should be one resource, but we need lots of resources for parents. In these times. All right. I don't want to cut the callers off, though, because I will...
Preach it.
Look at you. You get me...
This is a very important, passionate topic for everybody. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, and you don't find out until your kids are in their 20s what was said to them in high school or in junior high. But let's go to Patricia in Pennsylvania watching on YouTube. Patricia, thanks so much for the call. Go ahead with your question for Rose Sweet.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Very well,
Patricia.
Hi, Rose. You helped me a couple years back, and I want to say thank you so much. I was estranged from my daughter, and you advised for me to draw closer to the Lord, which I did. And she called me last Christmas saying, "I keep seeing you in my mirror instead of me," and she just couldn't get me. That was the Lord's work.
Oh, good.
So I want to thank you for that. Now, my question is going to sound, perhaps this should be a weird question, but anyway, my kids, quote unquote, are in their mid-40s, and they're both, from my standpoint, searching. They're searching.
Right.
That's what I see, and they'll both say that. So I want to know, as a mother, if I see a deficit in their relationship with their father, and if that comes across as holier than thou, so be it. Is there any way, as a mother, that I could be of help to my grown adult children to make up for a deficit that I see? I've never badmouthed them, I never have. However, and we're divorced, so that's kind of what I guess my question is too. In a developmental stage, does that sort of halt development when kids when they were young, mid-teens.
Yes, Patricia, divorce is a horrible trauma to everybody, and the wounds can last a long time. But I always remember to tell people that our Lord is still in the business of healing wounds. So our wounds can be healed. It just takes time, sometimes a little bit of money, and a lot of patience. I don't think that you were being holier than thou when you look objectively at somebody who's doing something deficient and calling that as deficient. That's not about their character. It's about what they're doing or not doing. So if a father is deficient, the mother cannot make up for that as he can or a man can. We are not wired to. We are not called by God to. But we can bring gifts of healing in our own right as women. We can pray. We can look for other women, for other men to come into our children's lives. We can't fix their father, and we can't substitute for the father. And only men can bring other boys, men, into the world of men. We can't do it as women. And we should be okay with that. That's not our job. But we're not alone. As Christians, we remember that we have our Lord, we have God the Father, we have the Holy Spirit, we have all the angels and saints, our Blessed Mother. We are in a company of people who are fighting for our children with us. So pray for their dad, pray for them, be patient, and ask God, what can I do to help that wound in their heart? Does that make sense, Patricia?
Oh, certainly does, and I will, and I am. Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
Patricia. We got to take a break. There's a couple lines open if you'd like to talk with Rose. Father's Day this weekend here in the United States. If you're a father and you've got questions about fathering in these difficult times, or maybe you've got a father. Oh, wait. Everybody's got a father. And you've got some questions about healing from those wounds or building that relationship. 888-318-7884.
This is Archbishop Paul Coakley, the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City, and you're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Who was the first Catholic in your family? Were they evangelized by a friend, a coworker, a stranger? Did you ever think that you could be that person that God uses to save a soul? And that soul could save their family, their grandchildren, and generations to come. At St. Paul Street Evangelization, a Catholic nonprofit, we train, equip, and mobilize Catholic disciples to do the urgent work of evangelization. Catholic Answers is supported in part by St. Paul Street Evangelization, streetevangelization.com.
If you've never been to EWTN's free family celebration, this is your year. Your EWTN family is waiting for you where it all began in Birmingham, Alabama. Join us Saturday, August 26th as we celebrate Mother Angelica's love for the Eucharist and mark the centennial year of Mother's birth. For more information on this free event, visit EWTN.com/family celebration. We want to see you there.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. A lot of ties being sold today at the mall.
Yeah, what are you doing for Father's Day today? I mean, this weekend.
My wife has arranged for all of my children for us to all have dinner together. So that's very, very nice.
Oh, that's sweet.
That's very nice because most of them I really like. I'm only kidding.
Those are my future coaching clients. I know. I know your father. Come talk to me.
You come see me. I have some things I can help you with. 888-318-7884. Actually, probably people don't go to the mall and buy a tie anymore. They probably already ordered on Amazon.
Yeah.
They've gotten the whatever the dad gift is, and we love those gifts. Do you know? Can I just tell you before we go to the call about my favorite Father's Day gift ever? I think I've told Darren about this. My daughters, when they were like 3 and 5. Every night they wanted me to read from this Disney princess book to them. And my wife took them to the bookstore because she knows that I want books. So we'll find a book for Daddy for Father's Day. They went to the children's section and they found volume 2 of the Disney princess book. And they were like, Dad is going to love this because they thought that I loved the reason, I guess in their view, I read it every night. I must love it.
Oh.
You should have seen the look on their faces when I opened it. They were like, "Oh, we nailed it!
Oh,
we nailed it, Dad!"
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Did Missy tell you ahead of time?
No, she did not. She let me
Oh.
find out while I was opening it, and I was like, "Girls, oh my gosh, I got the second Disney Princess book. This is the best."
Oh, that's great.
I don't read it every night though. Now that they're grown up, I don't read it anymore. Amanda in Portland, Oregon, listening on Catholic.com. You are next. Thanks for the call, Amanda. Go ahead with your question for Rose.
Hi. That was really funny. Well, first, I just wanted to say Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there.
Oh, that's nice. Thank
hard
you.
raising kids. And I don't want to detract from the focus, on fathers specifically, but since a dad called in and was asking, it got me thinking that, fathers as spiritual heads of households are probably thinking a lot about their kids these days. And I've lived in a couple other countries where there is government funding for homeschooling. You can actually decide whether your kids will go to public school or whether you will take the funds yourself to raise your kids. And I was wondering if there are any movements to help parents figure out how to do that or to advocate for that in any of the states.
Amanda, that's a great question. It's called a voucher system, and it's been raised for decades. People are hungry to be able to have the government offer that, but I don't know any state yet. Do you, Cy, that has made that available?
No, I would. I mean, there's certain states you think, well, they probably do, like Florida, but I don't know. I know the thing is in Maine. Have you heard about this? In Maine, they had a Supreme Court case because the state of Maine paid for private schooling, but they wouldn't pay for religious private schooling. So the religious schools sued. The Supreme Court said that's bigotry. You can't do that. So Maine, instead of paying for the private schooling, the religious private schooling, they made new laws about if you don't do certain things like teach LGBT or whatnot, then you can't have.
You don't get the funding.
So it's clearly just designed to keep so back to the Supreme Court we go. So I know there are movements to do this, but there are also counter movements of just trying to crush this.
Yeah, because that's our culture is leaning in that way anyway. It's an uphill battle. I mean, that's a good question, Amanda. Somebody.
But you're getting the big I don't know, Amanda, from us. Yeah. Thanks.
I feel like we pay the taxes, right? So.
I know.
Well, that would be the theory that many people operate under. Yes, but that's we had in many Western states. The state constitutions included what were called Blaine amendments. I think states all over, and now Blaine amendments are illegal. They were overruled by the Supreme Court, but the Blaine amendment is just it's a flat out anti-Catholic amendment that was supposed to try to make sure that not a penny ever went to a Catholic school, even for a disabled child or for a bus ride to school. You couldn't. And I think quite thankfully it was finally recognized as just plain straight up religious bigotry. But many people have this false idea of there's a separation of church and state, therefore you can't fund religious schools. That's not right. That's not how that works. We have federal funding for religious schools all over the place. Think of Notre Dame University. Well, federal funds go to Notre Dame University. It's just they don't want to pay for elementary and high schools, and I'm sure there are good-hearted people who believe that, but what they believe, despite their good hearts, is in bigotry. That's what that is. It's anti-religious bigotry.
I know that there are ways to fund homeschooling for your kids, but it would require radical change of your life. Maybe selling a car, downsizing, and putting 4 kids in a bedroom. I mean, radical things, and that's a decision. It is difficult.
Darren's like, I'm doing all those things. I still can't.
I know. No, I know. Yeah. That's true. And I look at I was talking about my dad, and there were 9 of us.
Yeah.
And I got other stories, man. We didn't get new shoes. All that money went to tuition. We didn't go to summer camp. We didn't do anything. It was Catholic school tuition. And one time I had bad shoes at school, and I guess the nun got mad at me. She was horrible. I had good nuns. Anyway, she gave me $2 and told me to take it home and give it to my parents for new shoes. My dad knocked on her door the next day at school.
Don't pick on
and
my
had
kid.
had words outside
Yeah.
with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can, again, a quick internet search and you'll find the groups that are advocating for those things. There's millions of people who are involved in this movement, just not me and Rose.
But I support him and I pray for it.
Oh, I do too. It's basic justice. And also, it has to do with the survival of the civilization. You can't ruin education for children or ruin the relationships between parents and children because the school doesn't like the parents' religious views and think that your civilization is going to survive. It ain't. I'm going to keep going. Jason in Staten Island, New York, listening on EWTN Radio. You are next. Go ahead, Jason, with your question.
Good afternoon, guys. So I have a 5-year-old boy. Just drives me crazy, and it kind of stresses me out. His mother lets him, play the tablet, and it just like when I try to get it, not discipline him, but try to tell him to do something, it's like he's focused, and when you take it away from him, it's like he snaps and it's like he starts freaking out. Give me my tablet. And how do you deal with something like that?
Okay, that is a stressful thing. I can hear it and I understand it. Jason, what you need right now is daddy school, parenting school. We weren't taught as young people how to be parents in situations like this. So I love Dr. Ray Guarendi, drray.com. I'm always going to put him on there. He has a book called You're a Better Parent Than You Think, A Guide to Common Sense Parenting. And what you want to do is set boundaries with your little wild man. But I'm going to tell you this as a coach, there's probably something in you first that needs to be addressed that is keeping you from setting healthy boundaries. You're afraid of looking bad or being mean or being put down by the mother. I don't know, lots of things. But get help because there is answers, there are solutions. You just need a new plan. Does that make sense, Jason?
Hang on, Jason. I think I put you on hold. Go ahead. Does that make sense to you, Jason?
Yeah, it's just hard because when I grew up, we weren't babysat. We weren't being babysat by the TV or by tablets. We went outside. We actually got involved, played with other kids, and I think all this technology just makes it harder to be a father.
Oh no, well, hang on, Jason, because you know what? I was just talking with Cy about that earlier. We were in front of the screen in the 50s and 60s too.
I was watching I Dream of Jeannie.
Right, exactly. I was watching Wild Wild West or whatever. But
I love that Wild Wild
So here's
West.
the thing, though.
That was good.
Mom and Dad would come in and turn off the TV and say, get outside. And we would go, because if we didn't listen to them, we got a whooping, or we didn't get dinner, or we didn't get dessert. We had good boundaries and discipline in our home. So we can't blame the devices totally. You are the parent, and he's 5. You can take that tablet away and not give it back to him.
I really want to stress that You're a Better Parent Than You Think, a guide to common sense parenting. Ray Guarendi is really good at this, and he can be very, very helpful. And I think he raised how many kids? 40?
10
50?
kids. All 5 of them are special needs, all adopted, and he's got a lot of good things about how to really see and love your child, but hold firm authority like God the Father does with us.
Again, I'm going to say the title because in case you're resisting, You're a Better Parent Than You Think, A Guide to Common Sense Parenting. I forget who the publisher is, but it's not us, so I can't give it to you for free. But you can find it at low cost on wherever they sell good
And let me add this too, Jason. We're not going to get into marriage counseling here, but your wife needs to be on the same page with you. Sometimes problems with children are evidence of a marriage problem, and that means that you're not on the same page and you're not working together. If you want to take that tablet away for a time, calmly, and as the father, your wife should back you up on that and say that to the child. Oh, my mom did that all the time. That's your father. You listen to him.
Yeah.
You get out of that chair. That's your father's chair. Dad he was a priority over us.
Thanks very much for the call, Jason. Thanks to everybody who called. Thanks to our guest, Rose Sweet. It's nice to have you back here. It's over already, yeah.
No.
Yeah. The good part's over. Next, Father Sam Keys.
Well, happy Father's Day, Cy.
Well, thank you. Thank you very, very much, Rose. I do appreciate that. Father Sam Keys. He's a father And he's a father. I'll explain that when he gets here. But Ask a Priest next hour on Catholic Answers Live, 888-318-7884. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. As promised, Ask a Priest this hour with Father Sam Keys. 888-318-7884. Ask a Priest works this way. We bring a Catholic priest in here, and you get to ask him whatever you want. And maybe there's something you've always wanted to ask a Catholic priest. Maybe it's a theological question or a question for an apologetics type question. Maybe it's a more pastoral or a family or a prayer-related question. They're all welcome. 888-318-7884. I kind of teased at the end of the last hour that Father Sam Keys is a father and a father, and this is what that means. He's a father in the sense that we call Catholic priests father, and he's a father in the sense that he has 5 children. But I got the number right. I panicked there for a second that I got the number. 5 children. Father Sam Keys, thank you for being here with us.
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be back.
And you were saying to me at the break, and you gave me an important little thing, and we should probably mention this, that you and I share an important anniversary this month.
I knew that you would want to gloat again.
That will never...
You had about
never
a
will
month
I forget
of gloating, last year.
I think it's been 10 months since I introduced you as the priest who tried to kill me. And but now I will introduce you that way again. The priest, Father Sam Keys, the priest who tried to kill me 1 year ago this month. 1 year ago this month.
Yeah.
Got nothing to say for yourself?
No, well, I'm sorry I gave you COVID. It happens, But hey, every time you receive Holy Communion, it's risky. So
yeah, you're always taking a risk.
It's always, life is full of risks.
That's right. Life is full of risks. Well, you did better with the COVID than I did.
That's right. You lingered, right?
Well, as a matter of fact, I'm still dealing with it. Some of it, as you can hear when I cough every now and then. But it wasn't the COVID so much as the loss of blood. For some reason, I lost a lot of blood.
Oh, no.
And I ended up with anemia. And,
wow.
And anemia, it's unpleasant. Don't get it. I highly suggest you don't get it. So, but by the time they figured out that I had this anemia, I'd already been sick for a month and a half, and then it took another month and a half to get better after that. And I would just like to say thank you for all of that, Father.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You ruined my summer last year.
I contributed to your holiness.
Boy, did you! Yes, I became very trusting after that. All my trust in God. Yes, because I had to. You do kind of like. Sickness and whatnot, it does bring you a little closer to God. It does have that effect.
Yeah, it can. It can also, have the opposite effect. It's
well, it can bring you all the way to God if you're not careful.
right. Well, that too.
But I guess so. I guess it could make you bitter or something. But the other thing it did made me very grateful for my wife, because she took good care of me, and I didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
But okay, enough of reminiscing about the time you tried to murder me by giving me COVID on retreat. 888-318-7884, the number here. We have something else to talk about that I want to talk about before we go to the phones.
Okay.
And that is, I want to put this in the most charitable way, but you're abandoning us.
Yes.
Is that the most? Maybe I didn't put that in the most charitable way. I tried, but it didn't work out.
Depends on who you want to blame. You could blame my bishop. You could start bad mouthing bishops or.
I actually feel really happy for you because you got the 5 kids.
Mm-hmm.
You got you're our chaplain, and you're the pastor of a community that's trying to get going here in San Diego, and then you have like 5 other jobs trying to pay the bills. So I feel like
not that many.
well, it'd be somewhere between 3 and 5 other jobs, depending on the week. And now you're being assigned to a parish.
Yeah. So I'm going to do one thing. I may go back into teaching at some point. On the side, there's plenty of moving to the Philadelphia area, Pennsylvania, and there are plenty of Catholic institutes of higher learning. I'm not saying that right. So there are plenty of opportunities for doing academic things. So I may be able to do that again someday. But for now, I'm certainly just focused on being a pastor and being in the parish and getting to know the people there and
wonderful.
Learning how to love them and how to help that parish community thrive. And,
have you met the parish community?
Not really. I met a few people.
Yeah.
Met
Do
a
they
few
seem like they're going to be
individuals.
hard to love, or
No,
Okay.
no, not at all. Actually, I'm really excited about it.
Yeah.
It'll be good.
Yeah. You'd be, so what, in the ordinariate for former Anglican priests, are you called a parson or anything like that? Are you got any of that?
No.
Nothing like that?
No.
It's going to be Parson Keys.
Well, it's funny. The terminology, it's not always super consistent, because in a typical Catholic parish, you do still have like that. The priest's house is typically called the rectory,
right? Yeah.
But most parishes don't, at least in this country, don't have a rector. That's a term which is used for like I think sometimes for cathedrals and like seminaries
and
especially.
cathedrals. Yeah, right.
So so that's it. So I don't know what the other term with pastor would be. A pastor.
Yeah.
No, I can't think of a good word.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know about the word parson, but
I'm from now on going to call you Parson Keys, but you can be whatever you want. But I'm going to use that phrase because I like it.
Okay.
All right. As a matter of fact, it makes you sound like a show on PBS. Coming up next, Parson Keys.
We all dream to become a show on PBS.
Yes, we do. You want to take some calls?
Sure.
It's Ask a Priest on Catholic Answers Live this hour, 888-318-7884. Colin in Newfoundland, Canada, watching on YouTube. We're glad you're here, Colin. Go ahead with your question for Father Keys.
Hi, Father. Thanks for taking my call. My question is essentially, I was received into the ordinariate in Canada, and then I've moved from where I previously was and am attending a Novus Ordo parish now. So my question is essentially, given where I am right now, and I know that our bishop is in the United States, if I'm going to adhere to one conference of Catholic bishops between the United States and Canada, which one would I be adhering to?
So our bishop is technically a member of both. If you're in Canada, it's the Canadian Bishops' Conference. What the U.S. Bishops' Conference does is not really relevant to you. Now, when it comes to our particular bishop, if he has what we call particular law, so if he makes decrees pertaining to disciplinary matters like, fast days and things like that pertain specifically to members of the ordinariate, that in a sense, it supersedes any kind of regulation from the Bishops' Conference. So that's just a kind of particular thing. But generally, you would follow whatever the kind of norms are of the Bishops' Conference where you live, if that makes sense.
Okay, so for things like meatless Fridays and stuff, I would go with the Canadian standard over the American.
Yes, indeed. Again, unless Bishop Lopes, our bishop in the ordinariate, unless he has given some particular dispensation from the rule or something like that. But if he hasn't done anything particular, then you go with the rule of the local conference where you live.
Colin, thank you very, very much, and congratulations on being received into the ordinariate as a Catholic. We're going to take a quick break. There's lots of folks on the line, so lots more questions for Father Keys. Ask a Priest on Catholic Answers Live continues right after this.
Miss a show? Make sure to catch up by downloading the podcast, available online at Catholic.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
One of the reasons we should go to Mass is because it is the food of the saints that we receive. And for the saints, they understood rightly that the time after Holy Communion, that those moments are the most precious moments of our lives.
The Holy Sacrifice of the Mass, live from the EWTN Chapel, every morning, 8 Eastern, on EWTN Radio and Television.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. Our guest, Father Sam Keys, is moving. He's moving to Philadelphia, where he will be the pastor of
St. John the Baptist, Bridgeport.
St. John the Baptist in Bridgeport. All right. So look for him there. It's Ask a Priest this hour, and there's just one line open if you want to fill it up with a question. 888-318-7884. We're going to Middlesex, New Jersey now, where Don is listening on Domestic Church Media Radio. Glad you're here, Don. Go ahead with your question for Father.
Hi, Father. I was wondering if you could explain to the audience what are the parallels, metaphorically speaking, between a father with children and a priest, because we call priests fathers too. And they have different duties, but I think we can interpret them in the same way.
Yeah, there are a lot of similarities. Obviously, this is something that I've thought about as that rare person who inhabits both roles. Well, I say rare. It's not that rare in the kind of grand scheme of things, but it's relatively rare in the Latin Church, at least. There's obviously some. I mean, I can start with some obvious differences. So, as a parent, parent of my children and my family, right, I have a sort of responsibility of, taking care of them and their kind of temporal needs, right? And I'm responsible for kind of all aspects of their upbringing and, making sure that they're fed and clothed and those kinds of things. A priest, may have some kind of paternal care in terms of the temporal needs, but especially if somebody is in the parish is maybe struggling financially or really needs help with something in terms of the temporal needs of this life. But the pastor is not the one who is going to call up your house and tell you where your kids are going to go to school, or make those kind of normal temporal decisions in terms of the upbringing of your children. The spiritual roles are very closely related, in that I think that in both cases there's it's a relationship of love, which is to say, as a father, you're giving your life in a certain way for your children, right? And so in my family, I always think about Carol Houselander, who's a wonderful English spiritual writer. She has a book called The Passion of the Infant Christ, and she talks about the child and how a child just makes all these demands, from the moment of their conception, on the parents, and it changes their whole. Parents, their whole lives are changed because everything has to orient around the children, or not in a sort of exclusive. They're the only thing in the world that matters, but they change the fundamental structure of life, right? And that I always have this responsibility to prioritize them and to put in a certain way their needs over mine. That doesn't mean that it's a competition, right? Sometimes it may feel that way, but it's a kind of sacrificial, giving. That's what you do, when you have children. You're sharing your life with them, and I think there's a lot of parallels with priesthood, in that, a priest in his parish, or if maybe there's another non-parochial community like a hospital chaplain or military chaplain or someone like that, the role of the priest as a spiritual father is to think of the needs of his flock, right? The needs of his spiritual children over his own. There's a sort of sacrificial self-giving. Now, to think about it that way too, shows where that can be an unhealthy balance, right, in both places, right? In the same way that in a family, if a father only ever thinks about the needs of his children and allows his own health and life to sort of suffer, that's actually not good for the children either, right? I mean, and the same thing with the spiritual father. So priests need to have a kind of healthy life where they are taking care of themselves so that they can better serve the flock. But I think that is definitely one of the beautiful things about the tradition we have in the Catholic Church of calling priest father, because there's an intimate, familiar relationship there, right? Of care and love. It's not just a kind of matter of authority, of hey, I'm the person with the rules, and it's not merely a kind of teacher, It can be all those things, right? Just like with a father and a family, but primarily it's a relationship of love. That's what it's supposed to be.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that call and the question, Don. We have Father Sam Keys with us. It's Ask a Priest this hour on Catholic Answers Live. 888-318-7884 is the number. 888-318-7884. Off to Lincoln, Nebraska we go. Jacob, listening on Spirit Catholic Radio. Jacob, thank you for the call. Go ahead with your question for Father.
Happy Feast Day of the Sacred Heart, Father.
Hello, happy feast to you.
So a while back I heard that during confession, when the priest is giving you penance, you can actually ask for a different penance and essentially deny the first one they give you. So I didn't know if that was true or not.
Yeah, that's basically true. I mean, I wouldn't put it in terms of, no, Father, I'm not going to do that. But I think, and usually like when I'm hearing confessions, when I sign a penance, I want to hear an audible response of, yes, okay, that I can do that, and there are times, where maybe I'm being a little bit too clever, as a confessor, and I'm like, oh, there's this really cool litany which I think you should do, and then you realize this person is not going to be able to look that up. They're not going to be able to find it, and sometimes I've heard, well, Father, I'm not sure what that is. Maybe could you give me something else? And sometimes I'll even kind of ask the question myself. I might say, well, would you be willing to do this, or do you want something simpler? So it's definitely okay. Again, respectfully, but especially if it's something where the priest assigns some kind of devotional act that you're not familiar with, or because the ideal that I was always taught in hearing confessions and assigning penances is it needs to be something that you can go do immediately. It's not meant to be some sort of huge cumbersome burden that's going to involve you reordering your life for the next 10 days or something. It needs to be because fundamentally a penance is it's a kind of symbolic act by which you unite yourself to the suffering of Christ. And in a typical confession, say you say, I'm just going to exaggerate here. I murdered 5 people, whatever. The priest says, okay, for your penance, say 3 Hail Marys, right? I mean, that's obviously, I use that extreme example,
yeah,
right? But the thing is, the little penance you're doing is not actually making up for the thing that you've done. In the same way that there's a kind of closeness here with the way that the church thinks about indulgences, right? In that the act that you do, so today there's an indulgence, right, for the Feast of the Sacred Heart. You can say the act of reparation, which was written by Pius XI. That act in itself is not in itself so meritorious as to merit all of these kind of to counterbalance, right, all these kind of evil things. What it is, though, it's a kind of a key in a way that kind of opens up the floodgates of grace, and the church thinks that that's good for us to do, right, rather than just, I always say. I always ask the question when I'm teaching this in classes, well, why doesn't, if the church has the kind of access to the treasury of grace, why doesn't the church just, give it out willy-nilly? Why doesn't the church take a kind of, like an Oprah effect, right? With like grace for you and you and you. And, right? And the reason is because the church actually wants us to change, right? And so there's a practical side to those little acts that we do, that allow us to participate in a direct way, to not only give our consent, but actually to do something that is in itself may move us closer to virtuous habits.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a bit of a long answer, but in effect, yes, you can ask for a different penance, but just do so respectfully and, have a reason for it, not just like, I don't like that.
Yeah. Let me see if I can get something else.
Yeah.
Okay, Jacob, thanks. Thanks very much. Let's go to Frank in New Jersey, listening on the Catholic Answers Live app. Frank, thanks for downloading the app onto your phone. Go ahead with your question for Father Sam Keys.
Hi, Father
Hello.
Keys. I've got a question. At Mass, the priest blesses both the bread and wine with the traditional form that Jesus gave us. But, for years now, we have not received bread and wine, but just the bread, just the host. And I think the Church's position is that the host contains everything.
Mm-hmm.
But elsewhere, like in John, Jesus says to the crowds, unless you eat my body and drink my blood. So, I feel bad that we're not getting both the body and blood, and it seems contradictory. The priest has it, but we don't.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
That's my question.
It's a good question. So the way that the Catholic Church thinks about this is that you are actually receiving both the body and blood, simply under one sign, under one species. So again, as you say, it's not just that the host without the precious blood is just as good, right? It's that it does actually contain the full grace of the sacrament and body and blood, soul and divinity, right? It's not just the body. Now there are some sort of ritual signs of that, and so in the Roman Rite, at the fraction, the priest takes a tiny little fragment of the host and commingles it with the chalice. So that's a kind of I would call that a sort of symbolic sign of that kind of mixture, if you will. So the Latin Church has at least traditionally understood that sometimes you'll hear the word concomitance, the idea that like with the one comes the other. And so as a result of that, and in the Latin Church for many centuries at least, the norm has been to serve Holy Communion in one kind for sort of practical reasons, in that the way that we distribute Holy Communion in the Latin Church makes it much more complicated to serve the chalice. Now, that said, there is, of course, a whole history of the Eastern churches. Even today, the norm is you receive both the precious body and the precious blood, but you receive them together, right? So there's some different liturgical norms there, whereas in most notably the Byzantine Rite, where the precious body is mingled in the chalice, and then the Eucharistic species are served together with a little spoon, directly into the mouth of the communicant. And so but that's a different kind of liturgical tradition than what we have in the Roman Rite. One other thing to add, though, is that the Catechism speaks about this. So the Catechism talks about, and as does I believe the general instruction of the Roman Missal, the Missal of Paul VI, gives some notes about this. And it does, in fact, suggest that receiving under both species is, and I think the language it uses is that it's a fuller sign, or there's a sort of greater fullness in the signification of Holy Communion, right? So that doesn't mean that there's something different happening on a metaphysical or ontological level. In other words, the sacrament is still a sacrament. You're not receiving more grace, receiving from the chalice as well as from the host. However, on a kind of subjective level, the level of signs, right? You very literally, you're receiving multiple signs, right? So there's a sort of richness there that the current, the modern catechism does commend, right? It doesn't suggest that it's a necessity. So that's something that I find does vary pretty widely from place to place and diocese in the Latin Church. There are certain places which have they used to serve the chalice, but then they took it away during COVID, and some of them have just been bringing it back recently. In the ordinariate, in my particular liturgical tradition, I'd say that, again, I can't speak universally, but it's pretty common to receive in both kinds. And I think that's why, because of that fullness of the sign that we want to emphasize.
That brings us right to the break. As you can hear, we'll be right back with more Ask a Priest with Father Sam Keys. Your call's welcome, 888-318-7884. Are you ready to defend your faith in a world of unbelief? Join us at the 9th Annual Catholic Answers Apologetics Conference. This year's theme, I Believe in God, and it'll help you provide clear and charitable answers to atheism, agnosticism, and plain old indifference. Don't miss what promises to be the event of the season. Join us in San Diego from September 21st through 24th as we welcome our special guest, Dr. Scott Hahn, and an all-star lineup of great Catholic speakers. Spend quality time with your favorite Catholic Answers apologists and enjoy 4 days of fun, fellowship, and adoration of the Almighty. Seats are still available, but they're going fast. Visit CatholicAnswersConference.com or call 888-291-8000 to register. Enter promo code EARLY and save $50. That's CatholicAnswersConference.com.
Want to know more about the origins of the Catholic Church? Joe Heschmeyer explores the beginnings of Christianity. In the early church was the Catholic Church. Joe digs deep into the words and actions of those who lived right after the apostles to refute anti-Catholic claims of how the faith was lived back then. Order your copy of The Early Church Was the Catholic Church today at shop.catholic.com or get it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
If you're not a Bible scholar, the full message of how the Sunday Mass readings fit together can be tough to comprehend. Apologist Carlo Broussard is here to help. Join Carlo every Friday for the Sunday Catholic Word podcast. In each episode, he unpacks the scripture readings for that Sunday and brings them all together so you can better understand and defend the faith. Visit SundayCatholicWord.com to subscribe. That's SundayCatholicWord.com.
Matt Swaim here. Monday on the Sunrise Morning Show, we'll take a look at this week in Catholic history with Kevin Schmiesing and get you all the latest news, weather, sports, and more. Now back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Father Sam Keys, our guest. It's Ask a Priest this hour on Catholic Answers Live. And I don't know if you ever get to listen when we do the flannel panel. Joe Heschmeyer, Chris Check, and myself as moderator of the flannel panel. But if you like the flannel panel, maybe you should ask yourself this. I wonder if I would like them in Rome. Because we're doing the flannel panel pilgrimage to Rome November 9th. Through the 18th, November 9th through the 18th. You can find out all about it at CatholicAnswersPilgrimage.com. And if it's something you'd be interested in, check it out now because the early bird pricing goes away at the end of this month. CatholicAnswersPilgrimage.com. We'd love it if you come. We're only taking 50 people.
Do you have to wear flannel the whole time?
You don't have to, but quite a few people have, when they've signed up, told us, I'm bringing my flannel shirt, so don't worry. I'll have it there. So I got to remember to bring my flannel shirt.
Will you get a special papal greeting to the flannel panel?
I'm working on that, Father.
I
wish you wouldn't have asked this.
I would like to greet the pilgrims from the flannel panel.
No, but it's not the Pope that does it. But when you go to the papal audience on Wednesday afternoon, if you sign up, if your tour group signs up, they'll say, "And welcome to the EWTN group that's here from Birmingham, Alabama, in the United States." And I can't decide whether I want it to say "Welcome to the Catholic Answers group" or to the flannel panel group. Like, it would be really funny to hear the guy with his Italian accent going. And a special welcome to the flannel. Well, that sounded like Dracula, but
it's just so offensive.
But it would be
sorry
awesome
to all of our Italian listeners.
And then I would definitely watch the Pope's face while they said that, to see if he's like, oh, I listen to Flannel Panel. I'm so happy they're here. Where are we now? Andrew in Maryland, listening on. He doesn't listen to Flannel Panel, by the way. I'm not delusional. I know that the Pope does not listen.
I don't know. He spent a lot of time in the hospital in the last couple of days.
Oh, that's right.
Maybe catching up.
Maybe
on
they were
podcasts.
like, oh, you should here. Look at. We've got this new app on your phone, Catholic Answers Live app. Check it out, Flannel Panel. Andrew in Maryland.
You okay?
Excuse me. Well, you tried to kill me with COVID, and I haven't been right since. Andrew in Maryland, listening on Catholic.com. We're awful glad you're here. Andrew, go ahead with your question for Father.
Hey, Father. Thank you for taking my call. My question was, so my understanding was correct on the voice in the Mass and the voice in Scripture. So during the words of consecration, it was my understanding that that's not your voice, it's the voice of Jesus Christ. And is that the same voice as when the lector reads the quoted words of Christ in the Gospels?
It's a good question. It's a tough question to answer easily. I want to say it's both in that you're right. There's this we talk about the priest at the altar being in persona Christi, in the person of Christ. And so there is a way in which, like when the priest is saying the words of consecration, right, just in terms of the grammar of the sentences, he's using the words of Christ. He's not, because you can imagine him saying it in a more distancy way, right? That Jesus said that this was his body, right? No, we speak it in those direct words. But I don't think that we need to read that in some sort of, way that it's not the priest, right? It's not like he sort of leaves his consciousness or is no longer in his body or something, and that he's purely, possessed by the Holy Spirit. And this, I don't think we need to say that, right? It's both that Jesus is acting personally through the person of the priest, right? And it's not a kind of competition between them. I'm sure there's more to say. I mean, that's an interesting kind of theological issue and question that I'm sure a lot has been written about. But I would say that it is different from. You want to compare it with a lector, right? It is different, right? And that the lector who maybe is reading, say St. Paul's letter to the Corinthians, where he quotes the words of institution, or he gives that kind of institution narrative, right, in 1 Corinthians. So. The lector saying that, right? That is different, but I'd say that the reason it's different. It's different because it's a maybe a layperson versus a priest, but it's also just different in context. That the reading is being proclaimed as part of what we call the liturgy of the Word at Mass, and the purpose there is to listen, right? That's very different from the Eucharistic prayer, which is a prayer that is addressed to the Father through the Son in the Spirit, for the purpose of offering the sacrifice, and so there's a very different kind of intentionality to the words in those two different contexts. I hope that helps.
All right, Andrew.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Appreciate it. Off we go to Portland, Oregon, listening on the great Modern Day Radio up there in Oregon. Daniel, thank you for your call. Go ahead with your question for Father Keys.
Thank you for taking my call. Good evening. First of all, Catholic Answers is fantastic, and I've been listening for a couple of years, but I want to be quick. I'm asking, Father, if you would pretend for a moment that you were my local pastor.
Okay.
Though I'm not attending the Catholic Church. I was baptized and raised in the Catholic school system. I later became, through the Nazarene Church, enlivened to Christ, became a Presbyterian pastor for 5 years. and then served and later, 5 years later, was served as a Lutheran pastor for 25 years, and I'm now retired at age 70. My wife is very Catholic in perspective as I am, and I love the Catholic Church. But in my particular situation as emeritus within the Lutheran Church, I'm asking you to counsel me. One, because I'm checking to go to my local pastor. I thought I'd check it out with you first. How you would counsel me if I came to Mass and wanted to partake of the supper.
Okay. I do have one back. So you mentioned that you had a background in Catholic schools. Were you actually initiated in the Catholic Church? Were you?
I was baptized and confirmed in the Catholic Church.
Oh wow! Okay.
And I went eight years with in grammar school, and then I went to high school, public high school.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I have the baptism certificate.
Yeah. Well, look, canonically speaking, if that's the case, you are a Catholic, right? I mean, the fact that you for some years were not practicing as a Catholic, and even had a kind of ordained ministry in other non-Catholic churches. The canon law in the Latin Church pretty much says if you're baptized in the Catholic Church, you are a Catholic in terms of the law.
Wow.
So all you have to do is go to confession.
Okay.
And
I can do that,
and
for sure.
and basically you go to confession. Now, of course. Now, I would suggest, that might be a longer confession. I mean, let's be honest, because we're talking about some years,
Right.
and so that what I would do would be to reach out, call a parish office, or if there's a priest maybe that you are inclined to trust, say, look, here's my situation. I want to come back to the church, right? I want to come back into the full communion of the church. I've been kind of away for some years. And, therefore I might have a bit of a lengthy confession because I have this kind of complicated history, and kind of make an appointment for that rather than just going and waiting in line. And I think that most pastors would understand that, right? But because of that background, you don't have to do anything else special. You're there's yeah.
Do I need to go to confession first before I participate?
Yes.
I mean, obviously, the answer is yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I should call the local pastor, make an appointment face to face.
That's what I would do. Just to kind of give you the time to kind of, because especially if you haven't been to confession as a Catholic in many years. I mean, for anybody that might take a little bit longer, but because you had this particular situation of having an ordained ministry outside the Catholic Church, that's something you just want a little bit more time to talk about that, right? That's not I'll just say that's not something that comes up in the confessional every day, right? So the priest would probably appreciate having a little bit more time to just kind of talk through that with you, and so that so that your reconciliation is more than just a kind of perfunctory, but you really, it can be a more thorough, like, hey, I'm kind of laying out my history here. I want to come back into full communion, and I think that you would feel better about that, honestly, than just trying to kind of slip in, because I mean, if I had somebody being like, oh yeah, my last confession was 30 years ago, and since then I was Presbyterian pastor, et cetera, I'd be like, hold on, like this might be a longer conversation, because that is just a little bit complicated to kind of sort through in the context of a confession.
Daniel?
Well, thank you very much. That was exactly what I was thinking I should do, and maybe we'll muster the courage to give that pastor a call and do that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
What a beautiful call for us to receive, Daniel. If I may ask you a question, have you ever heard of the show on EWTN called Coming Home? Oh, The Journey Home. The Journey Home.
I have heard of it, but they don't air it on our local station.
Well, you can look up the Journey Home Network.
Yeah. You're right. I'm familiar with it, and I will do that.
Okay, I keep getting my things backwards. It's the Coming Home Network,
Right.
But
It is. Okay.
but lots and lots of. I mean, your story is a beautiful. It's what a wonderful story for us as Catholics. We love to hear that story because it adds to the greatness of God, the way He takes us on these journeys and walks with us on these journeys. But the Journey Home is just a wonderful program that has.
Right.
I don't want to say similar stories because there's no similar story to yours, but stories.
There's an incredibly wide range of
wonderful, wild stories, and the Coming Home Network is geared towards people who have been in Protestant ministry, who are coming home to the Catholic Church, and so it just might be of interest to you. I'm not trying to lay any burden on you.
Absolutely. No. I agree, and I have heard of that. And if you could name the host. I think
Marcus
I could
Grodi.
tell you that. Well, that doesn't ring a bell, but I will do that. And
okay,
Father, thank you very much.
You're
guys.
very welcome.
Thank you so much. You do a great job, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, you really made our day, and God bless you. Thank you so much for the call. All right, we got to take a break. I got to say, Father, I'm a big fan of Marcus Grodi. I love listening to his interviews. I absolutely love them. And I don't really like hour-long interviews. I'm usually like a 2-minute interview guy. And I never feel at all bored with Marcus Grodi.
I gotta say, I haven't seen that many of them. Although I have a lot of friends who have been on.
I know, it's
show.
like all your friends have been on there. Like I've heard some of your friends on there. I'm like, I know this guy. The Father Keys knows him. But anyway, so what a lovely call, and we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Ask a Priest on Catholic Answers Live.
There's only one Catholic Answers Live.
The Catechism defines evangelization as the proclamation of Christ and His gospel by word and the testimony of life. But what does that look like in real life? It looks like St. Paul street evangelists out in the public square sharing the good news. We're a Catholic nonprofit that starts conversations by handing out free sacramentals. Then we employ our method of listen, befriend, proclaim, and invite. Catholic Answers is supported in part by St. Paul Street Evangelization. Visit streetevangelization.com to learn more.
By providing quality programming faithful to the teachings of the Catholic Church, EWTN is television that viewers can trust. Whether it's films, documentaries, news coverage, lively discussion shows, or kids programs, we highlight the truth that is the eternal Word. For a complete schedule of EWTN television programs, visit EWTN.com and click TV. EWTN, the Global Catholic Network.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. It's John Mark Grodi now doing the Journey Home. And the Journey Home and the Coming Home Network, it's the same thing. It's Marcus Grodi, but for some reason I got them mixed up in my head before. But man, I do like those shows. Let's go to Illinois. Caleb in Illinois, listening on 92.5 FM. Caleb, we're awful glad you're here. Go ahead with your question for Father.
Thanks, guys. First, I feel like I should ask a question about the keys of the kingdom.
Nice, Caleb.
Time, but I won't.
Nicely done. When you want to, that kind of nonsense is for when Joe Heschmeyer's here. All right, save that for Joe Heschmeyer.
I've had a lot of jokes from students over the years.
All right, Caleb.
No, my actual question is a bit more somber. I am going to be a father. My wife is pregnant, and I'm terrified to be a dad. I have no doubt that she'll be a wonderful mother.
It's not somber to become a father, Caleb. I don't think that's the word you're looking. I hope that's not the word you're looking for.
No, I mean that it's sobering.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah.
Well, that is true.
In many cases, literally.
That is true.
Sobering.
It's so true. Yeah.
Caleb, congratulations and happy Father's
Thank
Day.
You. Thank you. My question is either in your personal experience, Father, or simply pastoral wisdom. How can I prepare to be a father?
Okay, so let me think. I'm going to say two things. The first one is just understand that the perfect is the enemy of the good, right? Or don't let the perfect. I'm not going to say that. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of good. In other words, a lot of new parents, and this is kind of both fathers and mothers kind of things, but I think especially in our culture where parenthood is basically treated like a consumer choice, and having children is like we decided to buy a new couch and we decided to have a baby and this, that, right, in that culture there can be this sort of like anxiety about it where you have to do everything right, you have to know everything, right? You can't make any mistakes, because everything is just an opportunity for death. It's really extreme. We got some really good advice, and this is going to sound horrible, but get some really good advice. But I think it was my wife's. It was a great aunt, or I can't remember who said it, but they said, they don't look like much, but they're awful tough to kill. Which
not that we're trying.
No. Look, so again, it sounds sort of horrible, but the thing is that the children are quite resilient. And even little babies, right? I mean, I'm not saying please do not drop your baby, but still, don't. I think you want to try to avoid that kind of anxiety of perfection, right? And understand that the fact that you didn't read this one article when your child was 6 months is not going to be the cause of their downfall 20 years later, right? I mean, it's you're not going to be perfect. But the second thing is especially do everything you can now and in the future to fully participate with your wife in terms of understanding, pregnancy and labor and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think anything that you can do to understand that you are a part of a team, with your wife, is going to be really good for her. I mean, so this is, if I can just put it this way, like especially at this point, the best way that you can be a good father is to be a really good husband and to to really to love your wife and to do everything you can to support her and understand what exactly it is that she needs. I think that's both in the kind of pregnancy and leading up to labor with your first child, but then also after, like to understand that you obviously you're going to be a new dad, you're going to be excited, you're going to enjoy holding that baby, and it's going to be really sweet, right? But you also need to think about how you can support the new mom, right? To support your wife, and this kind of recalls a conversation we were having a half an hour ago about fathers, that you need to have a healthy relationship with the child's mother for the sake of the child, right? It's that you don't want to be the kind of parent who prioritizes the child in a way that's sort of imbalanced or unhealthy towards your marriage, right? When you have a child, everything kind of reorders, right? But that doesn't mean that the child is the most important thing in the world. They're not. Right? They're just a child, right? They're a gift from God. God is the most important thing, and to value and nurture this gift that you've been given, you have to value and nurture the marriage, which is the context of that gift. So I'm sure there's lots more to say. Sai, you want to add anything?
No, I think that nailed it.
Okay,
nailed
cool.
it. I would give you a 10 out of 10. Yeah.
Now, don't ask my wife how well I followed my own advice.
No,
but,
nor my wife. Yeah. But right. Caleb, does that help you?
It does. Thank you very much.
All right. God bless you, brother. Enjoy the ride.
Thanks. You.
See you in 18 years, Caleb. All right, let's go to Vincent in Boston watching on Twitch. Vincent, go ahead with your question for Father.
Hi, hello.
Hi,
Vincent.
So basically, I'm doing a personal devotion in which I abstain from meats on all Fridays, solemnities, including this one. So basically, I've been warned by my fellow Catholic brethren that this might be prideful. So I am wondering how I would avoid, with my personal devotions and maybe other aspects of my faith, how to avoid being prideful about it.
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is you don't need to talk about it a lot. I think that's a really easy way of being prideful about it. A devotion like fasting is if you're always being like, oh, well, feeling the need to talk
no,
about it.
No, thank you. I'm not having meat today because right.
No, I think if nobody knows about it, it's much harder to be prideful about it, right? It's much easier to sort of have it as an internal thing in which you unite yourself with Christ. Maybe it's too late for that. Maybe people do know about it, but other than, but that is, I think, the most important way of avoiding pride. I'm trying to think what else to say about that. Because if you're talking about just an internal thing, I'll put it this way: if you find that you're being really prideful about it, in other words, and you're having these kind of internal thoughts about how you're just so much better than all these other people who aren't doing those things, then my advice would be to stop. Not stop having the thoughts, but stop doing the discipline, because the discipline is not having the effect that it's supposed to have.
Wow.
It is a good thing in itself, but it can be corrupted, in a way that becomes a problem, if it's leading you into that kind of pride.
Does that help you, Vincent?
Yeah, that helps a lot. So I basically need to examine my own conscience regarding about what personal devotions to, and maybe I'll examine my devotion not to eat meat every Friday, including on solemnities. So that's really helpful. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Vincent. Thanks very, very much. Let's go to Pennsylvania. John, listening on Holy Spirit Radio, 1420 AM. John, glad you're here. Go ahead with your question for Father.
Good evening, gentlemen. Father, my question is not so much a question, but I want to call and welcome you to St. John's in Bridgeport. It's a
thanks.
lovely little church, and I've been there a couple of times for Mass, and it's just a spectacular Mass that the priest there does, and the choir is excellent. St. John the Baptist, before it was St. John the Baptist, was Our Lady of Mount Carmel.
That's
I don't know
right.
if you know that.
I did know that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, it was an Italian parish. In fact, in that area there, less than 2 blocks down, there was another Catholic church, and then 2 blocks north of there was another Catholic church. So it was at one time a very populous Catholic area. I think you're going to like the parish. I know some of the people that go there, and they're just lovely people. You're going to like the area, too, I hope. It's got a lot going for it. Bridgeport's a very small town, but it's not that far from Philadelphia or New York or Washington if you want to go out and see some different things. And there's a lot of different culture in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
We've got some of the best museums. We've got the best orchestra, I think, in the whole entire United States, but I might be a little prejudiced about that.
John,
well, thanks, John.
Just 2 questions. Are you a member of the Ordinariate or not?
No, I'm not.
And the other question is, how long have you worked for the Chamber of Commerce there?
Well, not that long, actually, but I was thinking about starting up with them again. In fact, I know that parish quite well. It was where my parents were married, and both my grandparents on my mom's side were buried from there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Well, they're getting. I can tell you this, since you said all those nice things about where Father's going. I can tell you this: they're getting a wonderful priest, just a wonderful priest, Father Sam Keys. We were so grateful and have been so grateful to have him here as our chaplain, and we're not sorry to let him go, because we know he's got lots and lots more to do as a priest, and much of it will be accomplished there in Pennsylvania. So thank you, John. And Father, may we have your blessing before you go.
Yes. The peace of God, which passeth all understanding, keep your hearts and minds in the knowledge and love of God and of His Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. And the blessing of God Almighty, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, to be amongst you and remain with you always.
Amen. Thank you, Father.
You're welcome.
Thanks for doing the show. But thanks for being
great.
our chaplain for all this time.
It's been great.
You've been awful good to have here as a chaplain.
Thanks, Sam.
And boy, they just kept Carlo abandoned us. Now Father's abandoning us. They're all jumping ship. I'm gonna go have myself a good cry, and we'll see you next time, God willing, right here on Catholic Answers Live.